Saundarya Lahari, the waves of beauty, the work and its world. In the ageless folds of Sanskrit literature, few compositions shimmer with the sacred intensity of the Saundarya Lahari, the waves of beauty. Born at the intersection of divine revelation and human genius, this extraordinary work of 103 verses stands as a lighthouse at the meeting of poetry, philosophy, and tantric mysticism. Attributed to the great philosopher Sant Adi Shankaracharya, the 8th century master who consolidated the doctrine of Advaita Vedanta, the Saundarya Lahari is, at its heart, an act of devotion. It praises the beauty, grace, and munificence of the goddess Parvati in her supreme form as Tripura Sundari, the most beautiful of the three worlds. Yet to call it merely a hymn of praise is to miss the ocean for a wave. The Saundarya Lahari is simultaneously a Tantra textbook, a guide to Kundalini Yoga, a compendium of sacred mantras and yantras, and a masterpiece of Sanskrit literary art. Its very first verse lays out a philosophy that animates the entire composition, that Shakti, the divine feminine, is the animating force of the universe, without whom even Shiva, the supreme consciousness, cannot stir. United with Shakti, Shiva is endowed with power to create. Otherwise, he is incapable of even a movement. Verse 1, Saundarya Lahari. The title itself contains a poetic truth. Saundarya means beauty, Lahari means wave or flood. The composition does not merely describe beauty, it enacts it, moving in undulating waves of metaphor and devotion, each verse a crest carrying the devotee deeper into the presence of the Divine Mother. The first legend, Shiva's gift and Nandi's mischief. Of the several legends that surround the Saundarya Lahari, none is more beloved than the story of Adi Shankara's pilgrimage to Mount Kailash, the icy Himalayan throne of Lord Shiva and the goddess Parvati. It is said that when Adi Shankara arrived at Kailash to offer his worship, Shiva, moved by the sage's profound devotion, bestowed upon him an extraordinary gift, a manuscript of 100 verses, each one a revelation about the many facets of the goddess, her form, her power, her grace, and her cosmic function. It was a text written by the Lord of Lords himself, a sacred map of divine beauty. Adi Shankara received the manuscript with reverence and began his journey home from the sacred mountain. But on the path down from Kailash, he was stopped by Nandi, Shiva's great bull and sacred gatekeeper. In an act of divine mischief, or perhaps divine test, Nandi snatched the manuscript from the sage's hands, tore it in two, kept one half for himself, and returned the other to the stunned Shankaracharya. Desolate, Shankara ran back to Shiva and narrated the incident. Shiva smiled. He commanded Shankara to retain the 41 verses he had recovered. These were the original verses of the Lord, containing the deep secrets of Tantra, Yantra, and the most powerful mantras. These became the first section of the text, Ananda Lahari, the waves of bliss. The remaining 59 verses, Shiva commanded, Shankara must compose himself, in praise of the goddess's appearance and form. And so Adi Shankara sat down, perhaps on the slopes of Kailash itself, or perhaps in the quietude of a monastery in Kashmir where some scholars believe the work was completed, and wrote. Verses 42 to 100 emerged from his pen, a lyrical portrait of the goddess from the crown of her head to the lotus of her feet, each verse a consecration of one divine detail. The combined 100 verses formed the complete masterpiece we know today. The second legend, stolen glances and a superior mind. There is another story, quieter but equally enchanting, about how Adi Shankara came to compose the Saundarya Lahari. In this telling, Shankara paid a visit to Kailash and found Lord Shiva engaged in a deeply personal act. The Lord was writing upon the very walls of his home, inscribing in sacred verse the beauty of his beloved Parvati. It was an act of intimacy, a husband composing poetry for his wife, written in the language of the cosmos itself. When Shiva realized that Adi Shankara, an outsider, was approaching and might read these deeply personal words about Parvati's beauty, he swiftly rubbed the verses off the walls. No mortal's eyes, however wise, should behold what a husband writes in love for his wife. But Shankara had already seen. And with his luminous, extraordinary mind, he had already memorized what he glimpsed and reconstructed the rest through divine intuition. The Saundarya Lahari, in this version, is entirely Shankara's recollection, a faithful mirror of what he had briefly beheld on Kailash's sacred walls. This legend emphasizes something central to Shankara's philosophy, that the truth of the divine already exists. The sage does not create it, he remembers it. Both legends, however different in their details, arrive at the same truth. The Saundarya Lahari is not quite of this world. Whether gifted by Shiva, reconstructed from divine memory, or, as yet another tradition holds, originally etched by Ganesha himself upon Mount Meru and memorized by the sage Gudapada, who carried it down to his disciple Shankaracharya, this text arrived through channels that transcend ordinary human authorship. The structure, 2 oceans in 100 waves. The Saundarya Lahari is divided into 2 distinct and complementary sections, each with its own character, purpose, and spiritual register. The first section, Ananda Lahari verses 1 to 41, plunges inward. It is a systematic exposition of Kundalini, the coiled divine energy, and its ascent through the chakras. It describes the Sri Chakra, the most revered of all sacred geometric diagrams, and outlines complex rituals of inner worship. Verses 32 and 33 contain specific mantra formulations. This section is where the Saundarya Lahari earns its status as a Tantra scripture, not merely a devotional poem. These are the verses believed to be of divine origin, Shiva's own composition, given to Shankara as a gift. The second section, Saundarya Lahari proper verses 42 to 100, moves in the opposite direction, from the inner to the outer, from the invisible to the visible. It is a devotional portrait of the goddess, beginning at her crown and descending to her feet. Each verse consecrates one aspect of her divine physical form and, through it, points to a cosmic reality beyond the physical. These are the verses Shankaracharya composed himself, and in composing them, he produced some of the most exquisite Sanskrit poetry ever written. Each of the 100 verses is paired with a specific yantra, a sacred geometric diagram, and a specific devotional practice. This 1-to-1 correspondence between verse, yantra, and ritual makes the Saundarya Lahari unlike any other text in Sanskrit literature. More than 36 commentaries in Sanskrit alone have been written on this text, the most celebrated being those by Lakshmidhara, Kameshwarsuri, Kaivalyashrama, and Dindima. The Tantric dimension, yantras, mantras, and kundalini. To speak of the Saundarya Lahari only as devotional poetry is like describing the ocean as decorative. It is, in equal measure, one of the most comprehensive Tantra textbooks in the Sanskrit tradition. The text provides instructions for puja, ritual worship, for the construction and meditation upon the Sri Yantra, and for specific methods of devotion tied to each of the 100 verses. The tradition holds that by constructing the appropriate yantra for a specific verse, reciting that verse with prescribed devotion, and performing the indicated ritual, the practitioner can access specific spiritual and material benefits. The text's 100 stanzas are considered the foremost among mantra literature. Kundalini, the dormant divine energy coiled at the base of the spine, is a central subject of the first 41 verses. These verses trace the Kundalini's systematic ascent through the chakras, describing in precise but poetic language the nature of each energy center and the states of consciousness associated with its activation. The Sri Chakra described in the Ananda Lahari section is simultaneously the external yantra used in worship and the internal map of the subtle body, the inner and outer perfectly mirroring each other. The philosophy, Shakti, Shiva, and the nature of reality. The Saundarya Lahari unfolds within the metaphysical framework of Advaita Vedanta, but it approaches non-dualism through the radical lens of Shakti. The supreme reality is described as non-dual, but within it there is a distinction between Shiva, the power holder, the still and formless substratum of consciousness, and Shakti, the power itself, the dynamic, creative, and animating principle. And in this distinction, it is Shakti who is the dominant factor. Verse 24 makes this cosmic hierarchy vivid and astonishing. Even Brahma who creates, Vishnu who sustains, Rudra who destroys, Maheshwara who absorbs, all of them act only on receiving the mandate of the goddess, signaled by the movement of her creeper-like brows. The mother's slightest gesture sets the cosmos in motion. Her grace is the condition of possibility for all divine activity. Brahma creates the universe, Vishnu sustains, Rudra destroys, and Maheshwar absorbs everything and assimilates into Sadashiva. On receiving mandate from thy creeper-like brows, Sadashiva restores everything into activity as in the previous cycle. Verse 24, Saundarya Lahari. The philosophical ideal expressed in the Saundarya Lahari works on 3 levels simultaneously. For the devotee, it is a gateway to worship, the goddess as the universal mother and source of all energy. For the tantric practitioner, it maps the subtle body, the chakras, and the esoteric rituals that invoke divine energy within. For the philosopher seeking liberation, it points inward. The divine energy it exalts in the goddess is ultimately the very energy that resides within the seeker themselves. Beauty is not outside, it is one's own deepest nature. The legacy, from Sanskrit walls to Tamil cinema. Few Sanskrit works have generated the breadth and depth of commentary, translation, and adaptation that the Saundarya Lahari has across the centuries. The first translation came in the 12th century, when Virai Kaviraja Pandita rendered it into Tamil under the title Abhirami Padal. In 1958, the celebrated scholar W. Norman Brown translated it into English, published as Volume 43 of the prestigious Harvard Oriental series. Over the centuries that followed, translations and commentaries multiplied. Pandit S. Subramanya Sastry and T. R. Srinivas Iyengar, Swami Tapasyananda of Sri Ramakrishna Mutt, Swami Satyasinghananda Saraswati of the Bihar School of Yoga, who authored a modern commentary with Sri Vidya meditations for each verse, and Mani Rao's HarperCollins edition in 2022, each carrying the text into new hands and new centuries. The British composer John Tavina arranged all 100 verses as Flood of Beauty, an orchestral work, carrying Shankara's Sanskrit verses into the concert halls of the Western world. And then there is perhaps the most intimate journey the text has taken, into the hearts of ordinary people through Tamil cinema. The philosophical core of the Saundarya Lahari's first verse, the unity of Shiva and Shakti, the mother is both the world and its soul, found its most popular modern expression in the song Janani Janani from the 1982 Tamil film Thai Mookambikai, with music by Ilayaraja and lyrics by Wali. The song holds an important place in conveying divine philosophy to the general public through music. The profound idea that the mother is the fundamental cause of the universe, that she completes all things, expressed not in philosophical Sanskrit but in the emotional, accessible warmth of a mother's form. The Eternal Wave. From the walls of Kailash to the cinemas of Tamil Nadu, from the manuscripts of Gudapada to the concert halls of Europe, from the sacred geometry of the Sri Yantra to the poetry of devotion, the waves of beauty have not ceased their journey across 15 centuries. The Saundarya Lahari endures because it speaks in the language the heart already knows, that beauty, in its deepest sense, is not ornament but essence, not surface but soul, not something we behold, but something we are. In the end, the 100 waves of this incomparable text all return to the same shore, the recognition that the universe and all it contains is the radiant, restless, inexhaustible beauty of the Divine Mother herself.
अहमित्येव विभावये भवानी।